For us. The eyes of the nation are on these midterm elections with so much at stake on the federal, state, and local levels.
Yeah, Congressman Ritchie Torres, who was fresh off his win in this election, is here with us to break down what it could mean moving forward and what issues brought voters out to the polls yesterday.
Right. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us.
It's an honor to be here.
So we're going to start off with the balance of power in Congress here. What would a GOP House mean for the president in his last 2 years?
Well, GOP House would represent a nightmare for the president. It could mean attempts at impeachment, frivolous investigations. It would be a distraction for the country. And, what we saw in the midterm elections is that the American people are punishing the Republicans for their extremism. The Republicans have become too extreme on issues like abortion and democracy. And the Republicans had one of the worst performances for an out-of-power party in the recent history of midterm elections.
And although you won your re-election yesterday, a lot of votes are still coming in across the country, and you're talking about issues on both the Democratic side and the Republican side. What are some of these issues that brought voters out and what they cared for, or what didn't bring voters out this time around in the midterm elections?
Look, people are concerned about their freedoms, their equality, their privacy, the health of our democracy. The Supreme Court's reversal of Roe versus Wade motivated voters to turn out in historic numbers on the Democratic side. And whenever abortion has been on the ballot, whether it's a blue state like California or a red state like Kansas or a moderate state like Michigan, the voters have overwhelmingly voted for privacy and reproductive health care and the right to choose. And it's a dynamic that we see playing out here in New York State as well.
So just touching back on that point about, of course, the balance of power right now and the way that the House looks, you mentioned a lot of those issues there that potentially could get sidelined, let's say abortion rights, climate change, things that Democrats, of course, have focused heavily on. If the Republicans were to take the House, what would you be able to do? What would be in your power? What would the plan be moving forward to get stuff done?
Look, if Republicans take control, we're going to be hamstrung, and much of the policymaking is going to come from the executive, President Biden. And so I'm still hoping for Democratic control because we've delivered for the American people. I mean, we passed the largest infrastructure investments in more than half a century. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which caps the price of insulin at $35 a month for senior citizens, which is a game changer for the Bronx. We empowered the federal government to negotiate more affordable drug prices for senior citizens. And we've put in place climate measures that will cut greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. And so the Democrats, had one of the best performances in a midterm election because we've actually delivered for the American people on core issues like climate change and affordability.
Right. And speaking of the American people, let's talk specifically about the Bronx, right? The people who elected you back into your office. What are we focusing on in this next term with the Bronx? What do you want to make sure the Bronx gets out of this?
Look, my greatest passion is affordable housing. We saw during COVID, essential workers from the Bronx put their lives at risk during the peak of the pandemic so that the rest of the city could safely shelter in place. And my concern is that our city is becoming dangerously unaffordable to our essential workers. So I have legislation that would expand the housing voucher program so that more Bronxites, more New Yorkers could have access to housing vouchers, which ensure that you pay no more than 30% of your income toward your rent. Affordable housing is front and center.
A hot topic and a necessary one.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Congressman Ritchie Torres, thank you so much, fresh off his re-election here, for spending a few moments with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.
And keep it here on News.